So for those of you who haven't figured out already, I'm not Santosh, because he unfortunately got ill, and I've already had one person come in and be really disappointed that I am not Santosh, so I'm feeling great. But thank you for coming anyway, because this is a good opportunity for me to test out some of my crazy theories, because this is a talk of crazy theories. And in maybe a year or in 2 years, I might look back on it and go, oh God, I wish that hadn't been recorded, because, so if it breaks, it's fine. If anyone wants to test the machine, that'll be cool. No, but it's me looking at what things am I noticing, what things do I think are going to happen, and what does that mean for me as a tester and for my team as testers and people that I know and care about as testers. So what does the future look like? And I have waited my whole life to finally be able to use a slide with the Terminator in my slide deck. So is it that it's going to be really scary? Is Arnold Schwarzenegger the tester? Is he the bug? Is he part of the problem? I don't know, but I like the idea of come with me if you want to live. So what I want to do today is to basically look into a crystal ball, which might be completely wrong, it might be right, and since there's so few of us, either I'll be done quickly and we can have a discussion, or throw things in the middle. If I go, no, I'm not going to talk about that right now, oh God, Mike's coming forwards. If I say I'm not going to talk about that right now, we'll put it towards the end. So I have some questions. Do we still even need the role of a tester in the future? Which skills will be important? Are machines going to do everything? And there are challenges, and how are we going to deal with them? And I don't even honestly know if I answer all of these questions, but these are questions that I have in my head. So I'm going to use a slide to talk about challenges. It's a slide I stole with permission from Tim. It is your slide. So we look at something even reasonably simple. I have a fridge that I want to be smart. It needs to talk to a gateway. I want to talk it to let it to talk to the cloud for whatever reason. We've got piles of technology here that's possible or not possible that I know pretty much nothing about. Vary. We've got lots of field protocols for sending things to the gateway. I think I'm starting to understand what Cura does, but I'm not sure. There's a lot of technology here. We have more here. Of course, I want it to be integrated with my Echo Dot, with my phone. There's this whole idea of machine learning stuff coming into that as well. And there's just some of the quality attributes that Tim was also just talking about. All of this means that it's big and it's messy and there are going to be challenges. However, looking at the challenges and looking at some examples, and the examples are fun, and I'm looking forward to going through them with you. Looking at challenges, looking at examples, I think that we might be able to see some patterns of what might be necessary in the future if we put those two things together, and that's the experiment that I want to do. So the first question I want to ask is, what do kangaroos have to do with IoT? Oh no. Anyone see the solution? Okay. The thing is, it turns out that in the future, equivalence classes are going to be just as important as they are now. Because Volvo has said that their self-driving cars are confused by kangaroos. They can identify and avoid deer, elk, and caribou, but not marsupials. Now, I'm not definitely going to say that if a tester had been more involved in that, that they'd have gone, hey, how are these equivalence classes looking? But it's kind of a bit obvious that kangaroos don't move the same way that those other things do. So equivalence classes, something that's, it's trivial. You learn it in your first or second day if you do ISTQB. I mean, it's interesting and it's useful, but this isn't the hardest stuff we do in testing. But obviously, it's being forgotten. So even that is going to be difficult or be still there. And if we don't think about it, we're going to have problems. Personas and scenarios. So these are some of the examples are a bit depressing, and I'm sorry. But it is a little bit depressing sometimes. So Facebook has the feature that you have this on this day, right? It shows you what you posted a picture of your bacon sandwich a year ago, and it reminds you that you had this great bacon sandwich a year ago. But there might be people who don't want to be reminded of what they did a year ago or what happened to them a year ago. Somebody's best friend took their life. Somebody who was not only having traumatic effects from seeing the on this day feature, but because you never know for which things it's going to come up, was having anxiety issues because they didn't know when Facebook was next going to show it. And this was at a time when it wasn't even deactivatable, something like that. And it says, Facebook has apologized after learning yet again that not everything can be done algorithmically. I could have told them that. Some things, it seems, need the human touch. So we have this idea, oh yeah, everyone's going to want to remember that holiday they went on, or the bacon sandwich that they ate, or that every year around this time I get reminded of all of the EclipseCons I've been to, and that's lovely. But there are scenarios and personas that might not be quite as pleased with that. And that obviously, I want to say it didn't get thought about. I don't want to assume it did get thought about and no one cared, because that's a much sadder story. Bad use cases are important. We learn about evil user stories or black user stories, and it turns out that smart home is becoming a tool of digital domestic abuse. So it turns out mostly that, we can look at the room here, mostly the people who deal with IoT tend to be men. Statistically speaking, it's more often that gender that's likely to be doing domestic abuse, and there are cases where women are having problems because their Wi-Fi is always, the password is always being changed, or somebody is playing, so the German word is Klingelstreich, it's knock and run, so digital knock and run, or lights, or the air conditioning being turned on and turned off at crazy times in the night, because the person being affected can't do these things, and the person who is abusing them has control over it. That is a use case that wasn't thought about, and the problem is that the legislation on this is so far behind that the courts are even trying to catch up to figure out how they can say, actually, you're not allowed to do that, that's a bad thing. So yeah, in some cases, loud bursts of music to suddenly play, change the lighting, turn off heating or cooling units, make a home act of its own accord. Yeah, few people have reported on that. Let's get to the this was in Armin's talk this morning as well. Microsoft's Twitter chatbot turns anti-feminist and pro-Hitler. I didn't actually bring any of the actual tweets from it because even just referencing them is so against the code of conduct, it's horrendous. But Tay went from humans are super cool to full Nazi in less than 24 hours, and I'm not at all concerned about the future of AI. This means that test data are important. What happens here? They probably had some test data. They weren't production data because we know how toxic Twitter is. We know what kind of data is out there, and that wasn't used for it. That's a bit worrying. Data in general are important. This is a new slide. I have a feeling I'm never going to have problems with this talk being able to grow and grow. This was one I saw a week ago. Amazon has been forced to scrap their machine learning recruitment tool because it didn't like women. Let me read this. So any artificial intelligence or machine learning technology is only as smart as the information it's learning from. Amazon's tool was designed to analyze hiring patterns over a 10-year period, a period when the vast majority of hires, especially engineers and data scientists, were male. This trend led to the tool learning that Amazon did not want to hire female applicants. It was doing things like dispreferring people from women's colleges, dispreferring women's names, various things like that, because what it had learned from the data that had been given was that that's obviously what you want. And it goes on. So problems where we realize that diversity and then looking at ethical things have maybe caused problems. So robots judging a beauty again, the data that they learned from was mostly white women, so anyone who didn't have white skin wasn't selected. Did anyone see this? News broadcast caused Amazon Alexa to buy dollhouses because they gave the example on the television, and then loads and loads of Alexas went and did that. And Asian man's application was rejected by a robot passport checker because his eyes are closed. Again, it's ethics, it's diversity, it's equivalence classes, it's surely somebody should have thought of that, and I believe that somebody could have been a tester. And it goes on and on. So this is great. This was in San Francisco. You can access, of course you need an app to access the toilet. This is like what Tim was saying. Why? Where is the added value in needing an app to access a toilet? And you could only have the app if you had a US phone number. How many people not from the US are in San Francisco? A lot. I've been there. This was great. Recognition for getting into your house. Do you know this person? The Batman on your t-shirt? And another life achievement of mine was finally getting Jeff Goldblum into sites. And this is the great thing. We get so preoccupied with whether we can, whether the technology will let us do it, whether we can create something that will do that we don't ask whether we should. Not even, yes, in terms of value, but also in terms of whether this is a good thing to do. And we were talking about this yesterday in the ethics tutorial as well. So I don't believe that just adding a tester is going to magically fix everything, because if I say that, then everyone's going to come to me at the end and say, Alex, we need your testers, or come and test in our projects. That's not how it works. You should do that anyway, but that's not how it works. It's not just instant add tester. But I believe strongly that a really, really important perspective gets completely lost if we don't have a tester in there. And it's, to some degree, it's the same stuff. This is why testers are like, oh Jesus, really, kangaroos? It's the same stuff that we've been doing for so long. It's applied to a different area and new challenges and new requirements. And it's not that it's not learnable. The point is that if your role in a team isn't to do that, you won't do it. If it's not your passion to do that, then you won't do it. And if it's not something that you have the time to become a specialist in, then you won't do it. Which is why we need people that do all of those things, and we call those testers. So how is that role even going to develop? And I actually, when I was writing these slides, I realized that I don't even really like the name tester anymore, because this leads us to this false dichotomy that just because one of the activities in a development cycle is testing, that we think that if other people are testing, we can remove the person with the name tester. But that's not the case. So we have the idea of doing checks. Anything that's automated in the testing community, we like to talk about them as checks because they're a little bit different. We're only looking for things that we know that we can look for. That's something that can be done pretty well by machines right now. Testing, if we're talking real exploratory testing, I personally don't believe that that's ever going to be fully done by machines. I know that there are some people that disagree with me on that, so I don't know. But if we look at, okay, what is my role as a tester or I like to talk about embedded quality engineers now. What is my role as that person in a project? It's to talk about strategy, about risk, about coaching people, about going to conferences and learning more and coming back and bringing those things. And if we even go a step further and talk about quality engineering, it's to be involved in the architecture from the beginning, from the design decisions. And that's way, way more than this idea of just testing or just checking. So one of the things that people say about, or that I hear a lot when we talk about testing in IoT and in the new world, we have this idea that everything's going to be machines, everything's going to be super, super technical. The only people that we need are developers, because it's just all going to be robots, and developers are the best at talking to robots. Now, I think that there is definitely going to be a new breed of half developer, half tester, maybe half developer, half tester, half robot, and I'm aware that my maths is bad, that we need for that, to do those things. But I don't think that it's just that. I think that what I was saying before about us having the building blocks in what we do as testers and building on that and putting them together in new and different ways is also going to be really important without just doing the talking with the robots. So I'm gonna make some potentially wild assumptions, and we'll test them in a few years and see if they happen. So number one, testers are going to be the new architects. I said it. I think that looking at how we need to design systems, Tim was talking about it, Andre was talking about it before, how do we need to design the system so that it is monitorable? Our test environments aren't going to help us anymore. Sure, we should use them, but so much of it is going to happen in the field, and that means that we need to actually monitor things. To design it with testing in mind, what information will we need to make which decisions? I think we're going to need testers there. I don't think we're going to just need testers there, but I think that that's going to be something that we're going to get even more involved in. I honestly don't know what the path looks like for somebody who maybe isn't a developer and hasn't worked on projects to becoming an architect or some kind of architect. I don't know what that looks like. That's something that I think we would need to work on, but I think that those people are going to be important. I think that testability is going to become a word that we don't hate anymore. I think it's going to be one of the most important things that we have to think about. Because, again, our systems, once they're distributed, once they're out there, once they're connected to everything in the real world with people doing real things with them, we need to be able to look at them. And we need to be able to do that in the field without having gone out there. And testability is related to maintainability, because anything that I'm able to inspect, I might also be able to adapt. And maintainability is going to be important because things are going to change quite frequently. And we're going to need to update things because we can't think of everything all of the time in advance. So I think testability, and that's pleasing to me because when I started out as a tester, the first things I ever had to ask for in testability were, could you please name this UI control so that my automation can access it better? And I swear to God, I have baked biscuits, I have spent princess points, I have done so much to get that, and now those things are accepted. Testability is becoming more accepted, but it's been a long way, and hopefully we'll get even further. So, and here's the irony, right? I was reading this. We know that we do all of this IoT stuff for the perspective of getting data so that we can be clever from our data. And then it turns out companies report missing critical data or finding it difficult to extract insights in order to improve their own products and make data-driven decisions. Teams struggle to leverage their product's data to quickly identify malfunctions. How ironic is that? That the things that we're building to be smart and collect data, the systems we build to do that aren't even analyzable themselves. This is testability. If I can't quickly identify a malfunction, it's observability. Abby Bangser talks about observability, which is a cool thing, and it's all linked. So there's an irony there, and we need to get better at that. I think that testers and teams are going to get support from machine learning and artificial intelligence, and maybe those things can learn to do a lot of things we call testing right now. But like I said before, I don't think that that's going to be all of it. I always think that we're going to need the human factor in the same way that we need. With automation now, we say automation is good, but we also need exploratory tests because there are things that we just can't think about, and we can only discover them by learning about them and then by continuing and going on. It's funny because we all think that we're great because we have this human intelligence, and apparently it turns out that human intelligence isn't actually that high on the scale. Like, we're not that great, but we're kind of all we have. We're our measurements. And I think that it's going to take a long time for us to be. I am still more okay with human error than machine decision. And I think it's going to take a long time for that to change in me. And with other people, maybe they're happy with that. But even if the machine will make decisions that lead to death, problems, whatever, much, much less than I will ever make the errors. And I know that the machine that's in my head has cognitive bias and it doesn't work very well and it only had 4 hours sleep last night. But at least it's my machine. At least it's my one and not something that someone else has written. And I think that testers are going to remain the glue between all stakeholders. I still don't entirely know why. Even if you have a team that has a product owner that knows about quality, and developers that know about quality, and an architect that knows about quality, and a UX designer that thinks about quality, that can all be an amazing thing, but I have experienced that if a tester is not there, that things get lost. Things don't get thought about, things don't get done. It's the focus, it's the specialty, and it's the passion, probably. And I think that that's going to be even more important, especially when we talk about, we're talking to people who have no idea about IT. We're talking to people who come from completely different domains. And testers are usually quite good at building those bridges. And I think that diversity is going to be incredibly important because it's not just about just having technical people. In fact, exactly the opposite. Our teams and our groups of teams are going to be made up from so many different people that it can't just be developers. I love developers, but if we know already that if we have everyone who thinks the same, then we have problems. And for me anyway, one of the biggest problems with the interpretation of Agile is that people go, oh, a dev team, and we don't want silos, which means that everybody has to be able to do exactly the same things as everybody else. And I disagree with that. There are always going to be people who are going to be a bit better in something, and you don't want a bus factor, you don't want it to just be that one person. But you need diversity, and you need it even more when these things start really going into much more into our lives. But I don't know. These are my ramblings, these are my wonderings. I honestly don't know. But what I do know is that when we go towards an uncertain future. With complex systems, where cause and effect are only visible after it's happened, so we never know that if I do this, it will definitely lead to that. There are two things that testers are already trained to do in exactly those situations, and they are to experiment and to explore. If we don't know, we do something small, we learn from it, we find out, we do the next experiment. That, I think, is going to be one of the main skills that we still need to have going forward, which actually makes me feel happy because it means that the testers of tomorrow look pretty much like the testers of today, because those are the things that we're good at. That's it from me. Thank you. 10 minutes. Okay, yeah. So we have some time for discussion, or you can throw things at me for my... What do you think? Tobias?
It doesn't have to be a question.
It can be a comment, that's fine.
You call them bad use cases. I love it. I've heard the term abuse cases.
Oh, abuse, that's lovely. Yeah, I think I heard that once.